getting double audio and the whole deal. The good news is you and I we're gonna muscle through.
We're
and
gonna record
figure
a
out a way to do it.
podcast. Well, no, we can say what it is. The problem is not our fault. It is not our tech savviness. What we were going to do is mute the audio on Haps
Yes.
and then record our podcast using a beautiful studio. Watch this. That is a studio and a half. See that?
It's strong.
And that was my plan. I had to make sure there's no porn there. That would have been really bad. Yeah, awkward. But anyway, but Haps, through the magic of Haps, they don't mute anything, and they don't allow you to mute ever. And so
Which
there's
does
no way
make
to do
sense
it
for the
without
platform, by the way. Just to be clear, because if you're using Haps to not do a podcast with a different source, then it actually doesn't
Then
make
it's
sense because
perfect.
you wouldn't actually go on mute. But the
Right.
reality is, you're right, not necessarily a tech issue on our end. But look, I'm actually looking forward. I feel like I haven't seen you in. I was
I
trying to
know.
figure it out. I think it might be like 12 years.
I had a lot darker hair. I know that.
Do you see all this little salt coming in? Come on now.
Oh, stop.
Not
Well, okay, here's a Haps
No.
question. Have you ever colored your hair, Mr. TV
No,
star?
no. We're not going down. That's a dark path that I'm not willing to
Oh.
to
See, I colored
investigate.
my hair up until 40.
Okay.
And then I did it cold turkey, and I stopped. And now I'm the wretched, disgusting person you see before you.
I'm just happy that it's still here. That's the only thing.
Well,
That-
that's the
that
thing. It
really
could
matters.
be worse, right?
It could absolutely be worse.
Did you have a bad quarantine haircut situation?
So it's actually funny that you mentioned that. So I am based here in San Francisco, and we went, I guess technically you're still not allowed to get a haircut inside a barbershop and a salon. So I went 140 days, and Seth, you know me well enough to know like I'm a 2-week guy. So 140 days without a haircut. Got one outside the place where I get cut on the sidewalk because you were allowed to do it outdoors, and then they banned those. So
Wow.
yeah, so I've gotten two basically in about 160 some odd days. But the cut it was issues, man. Like it was like a old school hair part to the side. There was a big kind of thing going on right now. So definitely just excited that it got cleaned up. So we're handling business.
See, so we had in our state when they opened. I actually called a week early by accident because I wrote the date on my phone and I said, "Oh, haircuts are allowed," and that was all set. We were all good, and then they called and they go, "You can't do a haircut for another week, but we can make an appointment for you." I went, "Done," and I did that. In the meantime, I had a lovely wife, and the funny part about it is, this side of my head looked totally fine. This side of my head looked very different than this side. It was very uneven.
Yeah, that actually matters, man. That it's the whole 360 thing that we live in this world. So I think here's the good news. You look like you're safe and healthy. I'm safe and healthy, and as a New Jersey guy myself, and that's where I grew up. Are everyone's good on the home front?
Oh, New Jersey's amazing, and I'll even show you this. So New Jersey, when it was the hot spot, when it was April. That house right there, that guy had it. 2 houses down, they had it. And down this way, if you go down that way, they had, it's St. Barnabas Hospital.
Oh, yeah.
And they had about 800 to 1,000 cases every day. It was brutal. And now they have flattened the curve. New Jersey has kicked ass, and New Jersey is... I think it's 350 hospitalizations out of 9 million people.
Wow. Well, that's another level because here in the Bay Area, we have our own set of issues right now. I was talking to you before we started this thing on the phone. I mean, the fires here in Northern California are there's some issues. So there's some air quality problems that we are dealing with. I would show you the outside, but you really wouldn't be able to see much other than and the haze. But the numbers are trending down, which is definitely a win. I saw that the ICU and the hospitalization numbers are down about 20%. So keeping the fingers crossed that this continues to happen. If you want to find a silver lining, Seth, and in people right now not going out because of the air quality, that would, I would imagine, help and benefit some of these COVID numbers, and hopefully we get back to reality soon. soon would be a
Have
win.
you found that you can't do a COVID conversation without it turning political?
Yes, although it's really hard. I have to actually think about it. You know what's surprising to me is that it has
Sorry,
become a
sorry, sorry,
political
sorry.
deal. Like I just don't understand, wearing a mask is just kind of like a health and safety deal. And,
I don't
for
get
all
it.
the people that it doesn't make sense to me. People say, "Oh, you're infringing on my freedoms." It's like, dude, do you drive? Yeah, you have car insurance, right? Yeah, you have to wear a seatbelt. Like those are the rules of being able to have a car. Like I would argue right now we're on unprecedented times, and if you're being told, "Hey, wear a mask for a short period," that's okay. Like that's going to
It's
actually
not a
ensure that
political
there
thing,
is
and I have
freedom.
plenty of Republican
Yeah,
friends that I'm not fighting with. Like I don't understand.
yeah.
I don't understand the argument. And I love and speaking of San Francisco, if you look at 1918, the Spanish flu, there are articles in the San Francisco Chronicle that say there's a hearing about wearing masks.
No kidding.
Yeah, and
That's
in
worth a Google search when we
1968,
finish up.
there's other hearings about the seatbelt. People went to public hearings to say I don't want to wear a seatbelt, which is the
And
dumbest
now
thing
it's
I could
standard.
ever imagine.
Yeah. But think about it in these terms, and I think that's the surprising. Like the seatbelt was something that we just didn't anticipate. I would imagine people just were driving without them, and they got used to it and didn't want to be told what to do. Like I think if you just take a step back, you realize like the mask deal is probably a temporary thing. Like we're not going months, years, and the rest of our lives having to wear them. So it's really disappointing, and I think from a sports perspective, knowing how dramatically different society is looking from through that lens, it's almost bothersome, right? Like the NBA has been able to figure it out, and kudos to that league to having the bubble and making sure that their players are safe and they're tested on a daily basis. Major League Baseball is, and that's your world, man. Like that there's been some issues, and it looks like things are at least correcting for the most part. Worried and concerned, obviously, about the NFL, but I think they'll figure it out. And college football, which right now is a complete mess with all these conferences basically doing their own thing. To me, if we all just did the whole mask thing, back in March when all this when all this stuff
It'd be
happened,
over.
it'd be over. We'd be
We'd have
having,
fans in the NFL. It was
I know,
so stupid. It's
yeah.
it's so dumb. It's so dumb, and I don't know how the NFL is going to pull it off. I don't know how. I'm
Well,
hopeful, but I don't know how.
I would love to know some of the rules that they're instituting. I know the testing right now is really significant, but this idea of doing a bubble, like that's not even on the table for the NFL. And I don't know exactly how it would be. I mean, just the length of the season. The NBA.
Uh-oh. What happened to him? Well, that was weird. We lost him. Well, how about that? We lost him. Well, we were going to pretty much wrap it up anyway. We like this. This is fun. I can have these conversations. I can do this. Remove guest. There you go. I can do this. I can totally do this. But I'm on schedule to do a Sports with Friends podcast. I put it in the chat. Look at that. You think I don't have a hotkey for that? That's what the podcast is called. And we're going to go record a podcast now. And it'll be out on iTunes. And maybe we'll come back on Haps when we're done. We'll see. All right. We will see all of you guys. Oh, you know what? I want to hit the 10-minute mark. We got 40 seconds. What else can I plug? I do this podcast called Sports with Friends, and we're on episode, I think it's 260 something, and our guests are either, well, they're my friends, or they're friends of a friend. And Mike Yam is a longtime friend who I've lost touch with for 10 years, and we're good to go. And what other podcast do? I do this other podcast called The Hall of Justice, and that's a superhero podcast. And that's a lot of fun, too. And that comes out on Thursdays. And I have that recording today, too, with a animation director named Butch Lukic, Butch Lukic did Batman Beyond and Justice League and all these other things. So, yeah, lots of things going on right here. All right, we're going to go record a podcast. We'll see you next time. See ya.